Excellent. An ale for me. And for my officers. In fact, ales for everyone.
10 backwards. Rick and Wick. And Will.
Oh, yes.
Last time on
10 backwards.
Captain Archer going into space
I would be in a ditch somewhere and I'd be happy to be dead.
with his friends, but not the Vulcans.
The look on Gemma's face.
Oh, yeah, I have a real problem doing this podcast with you guys.
Austere, but sensual.
Bitch. Yeah,
they
but
always
he's...
crowbar in a half-naked man as well.
But he doesn't have sexy underpants
there's
on.
In that Reed does a really accurate impression of him.
Keep your shirt on, Lieutenant.
I mean, he's in good shape, and it's obvious from his... Anyway.
And now the conclusion.
Hey everyone, welcome to 10 Backward, a podcast about Star Trek from merry old England. I'm Richard, and to my left is Rick.
Hello.
And in front of me is Will.
Kapla!
And to his left is his wife Gemma.
Hello.
This is part 2 of an episode about season 1 of Enterprise. In part 1, we talked a bit about the inception of the show, the pilot episode, Broken Bow, and the main kind of crew, the cast. That was where we left off.
Should we talk about Phlox?
Yeah,
I've
let's
got
do
the
that.
blurb.
Please deliver
full
it.
name is Phlox Tunai Ortan, but he goes by Phlox for our benefit. Our most exotic character, the Doctor, is an eccentric alien with an oblique sense of humour that no one quite understands. We all understand that.
Yeah.
Guys, right?
Tell me about it.
Because he speaks with an accent and isn't familiar with Earth cultures, there are many humorous misunderstandings.
What?
Phlox thinks that humanity is fascinating. The complex sexual mores his species reproduces asexually. Social customs. Oh my, what wonderful creatures. To say the Doctor has made himself at home on the Enterprise is putting it mildly. He's filled sickbay with all sorts of bizarre medical instruments, alien plants and spores, and stasis chambers filled with small living creatures. He practices a brand of intergalactic medicine, the likes of which we've never seen. This makes the most routine visit to sickbay an unexpected adventure.
It feels like Phlox has written that himself to sell the idea of coming to sickbay. And a visit will only cost you $9.99.
9 space credits.
Yeah.
It could be full of hilarious misunderstandings.
I think Phlox is great.
I love Phlox.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be the comic alien, but he's actually really thoughtful and interesting.
Kind of the part of the show.
You get to Dear Doctor. Let's just highlight Dear Doctor as an amazing episode.
Yeah, I love Dear Doctor.
Yeah, because it's so well done. It's all done from his point of view. It's him writing a letter to his colleague, and it's a really great one. I quite enjoy the moral dilemma about it as well.
Yes.
It's another good Archer one, I think, as well. Archer he's all right.
It forces Archer to face a dilemma he not anticipated.
There's a
decision.
There's a great scene where Phlox admits that he was holding something back from Archer, and Archer deals with that pretty well. I
think the important part of that is that Phlox feels that actually he trusts and respects Archer now. He can come up and say to him, I was holding this back, this is what I think, this is what... And he leaves the ultimate decision. And then Archer trusts and respects Phlox to come back and say, I trust what you said, and that's how we're going to go with it.
Yeah.
Even though he's kind of a bit... He's not entirely comfortable with it, but ultimately he falls in favour of what Phlox thinks.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a very important moment.
He's really diplomatic as well. Like he's really good with people when they're being obnoxious. I think there's a scene in where I think it might be unexpected. I think when Trip's in sickbay. Being all upset about things because of what happened, and Phlox is great. Like he's really good at kind of. He's got great empathy, I think.
Oh, he's a cracking Doctor, hasn't he? He's got the whole. I do like with Phlox as well that they they don't overdo it, but they do use some elements of CGI just to increase the
I
alien.
was going to say that. There's
They widen
an
it up. They've made the long tongue. They don't.
Is it-
They don't loads. They don't throw it in and bash you around the head with it.
In fact, I don't remember. I remember seeing that smile in Broken Bow, and I don't remember them doing that again in season 1.
It's just one or two little touches, and they don't go overdo it, but it's just enough to sort of enhance the alienness of the look.
Yeah.
In a way they've not really been able to with anything else, but it's quite nicely done.
Probably ate into the budget a bit whenever they did that. So, but he's one of the most likable characters straight away, I think. And I think he has one of the he's the focus of one of the standout episodes.
Absolutely,
in Dear Doctor. Yeah.
Shall we talk about Commander Trip Tucker?
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, here's the spec for Trip. Chief Engineer, early 30s. A southerner who enjoys using his country persona to disarm people. He has an offbeat, often sarcastic sense of humour. Although Commander Tucker is a brilliant engineer and an outstanding officer, he has very little first-hand experience with alien cultures, and he's often a fish out of water when dealing with new civilizations. As a young man, he spent time deep-sea diving in the Florida Keys, working on an ocean reclamation project. Bold and fearless, this thrill-seeker didn't stop there. His skills at working in a hostile environment with no gravity, dependent on artificial life support, would eventually lead to a career in orbital engineering, building starships at Utopia Planitia, where he earned a reputation as a troubleshooter who would take on challenges that most engineers think impossible. I read in Memory Alpha that originally they were going to call his character Spike, but because there'd been a character in Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Spike, they changed it.
Oh, okay.
I have a thing. Okay, so his tough environment, and he does his the engineering in difficult environments and does orbital engineering stuff. And how come in Broken Bow he can't even go through the sweet spot without smacking himself in the ceiling?
Whoa! Yeah, yeah. I know. That said,
He is very much the fish out of water, as you say. He is probably the character who finds it most difficult to separate alien cultures encounters from his human values.
yes.
And I think we see that in the pilot when he sees the mother trying to wean her child with a different atmosphere. So she's got like the mask on him, so she's providing his normal his childhood air that he can breathe, but weaning him to a different one, because that's what they do. And he thinks she's torturing him or trying to kill him. It's not till T'Pol explains. And this kind of then goes through, because he's one of the worst probably for teasing or needling T'Pol about Vulcan things. But yeah, I mean, generally he's quite a likeable, straight up Southern charmer.
His character, I like. His character is really good when they have a scene in engineering. I think the engineering scenes in Enterprise are really good. You get a real sense that that's a working part of the ship. Because when he's messing up, when he's kind of fixing something, it feels pretty genuine, I think, and I really like that about Enterprise. I think it has some good sets internally on Enterprise. The ship itself is well thought out. You get a real sense of that ship from the sets, and the engineering, the engine room is a good example of that, I think.
I felt that Trip maybe got 3 key episodes in this series. Strange New World, which I kind of have to dismiss because he was under the influence of a thing anyway, so it's kind of not really a reflective or a character building one. Unexpected, which, in all honesty, doesn't feel like it was written for Trip. It felt like it was written, and then they just sort of
could have been
decided which character they were going to shoehoon into the role.
For listeners not familiar with that episode, Trip gets pregnant.
Yes, that's the pregnancy episode.
Yeah.
There's issues with that episode and its depiction of pregnancy and what it says about, particularly what it says about pregnant women being very poor. Not saying the women are poor, it's not talking about their financial situation. I mean, what the episode does is bad.
One thing about his character in that episode is that it wasn't like, oh, get it out of me. At the end, he did want it out of him, but he wanted it to be safe. And
he clarifies that pretty quickly. I think.
So I think that's in support of his character in that episode.
I think Unexpected gets some criticism that it doesn't deserve.
Yeah, I think we're going to be debating that hard when we get to our highs and lows section.
Fair enough.
And the third one that I think was key to Trip is Shuttlepod 1.
Yes.
This is where we start getting
lot.
to the meat of it, and this is where we get a lot more of an insight to Trip and how he relates to people.
Yeah.
Him and Malcolm
form a bit of a
are
bromance.
they work well together. I think those two characters.
Yeah. And Malcolm. Let's move on to Malcolm Reed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lover of guns and explosions.
You go. You deliver your. Yeah.
British male, late 20s, armoury officer. In the new age of humanity's enlightenment, Reed is a bit of a throwback. He's a 22nd century soldier, all spit and polish and by the book. This really does read like Alan Partridge has written. His hair is cut razor short. He maintains a rigorous daily schedule. When he isn't on duty, he's working out on a futuristic exercise apparatus that he keeps in his quarters.
What?
I can't remember that apparatus.
The budget didn't get that far.
Toiling in the munitions lab, perfecting some kind of torpedo. Reed is always trying to expand his weapons inventory, storing ammunition. Storing ammunition in parts of the ship designated to engineering.
Ooh,
Reed is filled with
dangerous.
contradictions. Despite his near obsession with regulations and munitions, he's also softly-spoken, shy, and awkward around women. When testing a new photon weapon, he's liable to put on a pair of space-age earplugs because he doesn't like loud noises.
Okay.
A lot of that I don't think necessarily came up in episodes.
No.
The
Allergic
exercise
to
machine. Yeah.
I think Reed's all right.
I like him.
I genuinely, I don't think there are many episodes where he's involved where what he does is superfluous. It seems like all of his stuff is meaningful to the story. There are quite a few good scenes again, like with Trip, where he'll be in the armory, just messing around, trying to work something out, and I think that's good. You get a sense that he's really good at his job.
He is. I mean, actually, when you look at it, he comes up with some stuff that he's pretty clever. He ends up coming up inventing force fields, right, isn't he?
Yeah,
it's
and
not exactly.
He's pretty focused, isn't he? He's all about the job.
I think as well, if you look at it, he's very much on the security end, the preparedness. The middle, he comes up with the tactical alerts. He could have called them the read alerts.
I think,
and then actually, his attitude is borne out over the course. Not so much series 1, but later.
Yeah.
Actually, Archer himself comes to grimly admit that it's much more dangerous than he'd ever expected.
Silent Enemy, I would say, is a great read episode.
Is that the phase cannon one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, absolutely, because he's very keen and he gets it all going. It's really, really good. Is that also the pineapple cake?
Yes, which I actually thought was quite a charming piece.
I like the final.
The thing is,
how did you know, sir?
It's a touching moment.
What we had through that episode was everyone going, Reed's really difficult to get to know. I've talked to his family, I've talked to his friends, and everyone's saying it's difficult to get to know him. We've tried to get to know him on here, it's difficult to get to know. So at the end of it, what we know about Reed is he likes pineapple.
But I like
is allergic to it.
But I like that you do have a character that is difficult to relate to because he's difficult to get to know, and all of the other characters are acknowledging the fact that they just can't get to know him, and it's generally he's a nice guy, but no one can really kind of connect with him.
I really like the payoff that he like the performance that he really sells it with the line where he's like,
pineapple. That's my favourite. How on earth did you know?
He's genuinely touched that they've actually found out that he really likes pineapple, and it's like, it's just a little thing, but his performance sold the whole quite ridiculous long-running kind of B plot about finding out that he likes pineapple. But the resolution worked for me, and it felt like okay, they have managed to make a connection with him, and I kind of thought that was quite nice. But overall,
I think Reed's other big moment is Shuttlepod 1 again, which is really interesting because he's very his whole attitude towards impending death is very different to Tucker's. And that's what leads to the friction again. That's that romance that starts with them. But there's then that really touching admission in that Enterprise is the first time he's really in a group of people that he cares about, and actually how much it ended up hurting him that one of them thought he was so fatalistic.
Yeah.
And so it's quite.
He also admits that T'Pol's got a lovely bum, and he also does. Me and Gemma watched this episode and acknowledged that his drunk acting was
almost as bad as his having a cold.
Yeah. If you remember the episode where he has a cold, he does overact.
Dogs,
He overplays having a cold. Just I've got a cold. I'll try and get. I've got a cold. Achoo!
Is it the actor or is it like a guy with man flu?
We can travel faster than the speed of light. You think we can find a cure for the common cold?
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah. And that him having a cold never goes anywhere.
No.
It's fight or flight, isn't it?
No, Sleeping Dogs.
Is it?
Oh, that's it, because he gets a bit feverish when
Hoshi
he's...
and
they go and find some water.
Smell on the ship.
Oh, okay.
And then in the decon chamber at the end, they talk about how they wouldn't stay in there because obviously it's a sterile chamber and there's no smell.
Yeah.
And so... But yeah, it kind of like...
it got a bit funny with dehydration because he had a cold.
Yeah,
I kind of wonder if there's maybe more to the cold line, the plot line that got cut out though, because it kind of feels like it doesn't really.
I like to imagine they were like, "Oh, have you seen this guy's having a cold acting? It's dreadful. Let's write an episode where he has a cold. We'll show you."
Maybe it's a thing.
Obviously, bad. He's drunk acting.
This, actually, maybe it's a thing from when you do stage theatre acting.
Yeah,
you have to overemphasise things so that the audience can understand that.
Well, maybe he was harnessing his calling in sick to work.
Yeah. Hey, we've all done it.
My feeling is Dominic Keating did a fantastic job of portraying a man who totally exaggerates his own symptoms specifically and the cold, and his drunk acting is spot on. If we ever want to get him on this podcast,
yeah, good point.
Let's be nice to him.
Yeah, can't fault his drunk acting.
Maybe that
I believe
is what
he
he's
was
like
drunk.
when he's drunk.
He probably turned
Maybe
up
they
to work
just
drunk.
got him drunk.
Yeah,
and that's what it's like.
Yeah. So are we left with Hoshi?
Hoshi
and Travis.
I'd forgotten about Travis.
So the bloke for Hoshi is comm officer, Japanese, mid to late 20s, striking and intelligent. Hoshi has a feisty spirit that often tests the patience of the crew. She's in charge of communications on Enterprise, but she also serves as the ship's translator. An expert on exolinguistics, she learned to manipulate her vocal cords to emit a range of alien sounds no human has ever produced. She has a natural affinity for picking up languages.
Nope.
Hoshi doesn't like the idea of being trapped in a tin can hurtling at impossible speeds. Every time the spaceship jumps to warp, she grips her console and closes her eyes. She's a white-knuckle spacefarer.
Just incidentally, do any of the male character blurbs talk about their physical appearance?
I guess Flux's does a bit, but
no. But she's striking.
Perky.
Well, I think isn't there a thing once where she admits that she punched a senior officer when they found her? Maybe that meant that she's striking because she's struck him.
Yeah.
Right,
She was
literally.
organising some kind of poker tournament.
That was it. Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. See, they pay lip service to this feisty attitude of Hoshi's, but it just doesn't pay off.
No.
I don't think it doesn't come across in quite the right way.
She's more kind of whiny and a little bit annoying.
I think they got too
early
caught up
on.
in this reluctant white knuckle
Yeah,
thing.
but I the one thing I did remember from her that she was whiny and annoying, but actually watching it again, she does grow quite quickly.
Yes, I think she does.
I found in the rewatch that she's much better than I remembered. She does have a lot of stuff to do in terms of translation and communication. And it's quite clear from the character-wise, she is like a genius with languages. But yeah, I just think they overplay the reluctant thing, and it's a detriment to a character. Because if you skip forward to series 4 in the Mirror Universe, you see it's not that the actress is stuck in this mode. She's actually capable of playing a very different sort of Hoshi if she's given the story and the chance. So I think maybe Linda Park has done a disservice by the writers focusing on one end and losing that feistiness that was part of the Bible.
I think, I think sometimes it's just there aren't a lot of stories where you get to see Hoshi use her talents very well.
I think
probably there's one episode, called Civilization, and there's a scene. It's where they go to this planet. And there's a scene where the communicator stops working, and it's Archer and this investigator lady on the planet, and he starts to hear her regular language. He can't understand it, so he has to kiss her until the UT starts working again. And that works with Archer because he can't speak. But it would have been great if it had been like a Hoshi episode where they couldn't use the UT and they had to do this thing, and she was the only one that could do it.
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
I think a lot of the problem is they established the universal translator way too early.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think that should
because
have
then why do you need Hoshi?
Yeah, Hoshi has to be there to press the little buttons on the device. In
I think they should have had a lot more.
Yeah,
and I can understand that sometimes they would feel it would slow the story down, I suppose. But you kind of have to respect the world you've built, and part of that is the language thing has not been solved yet. So they kind of just skipped into Universal Translator way too easily, and then they were sort of left with this character that they built in a certain way, but they weren't paying off in the right way.
Yeah, I think Hoshi actually gets a lot more screen time in season 1 than I remember her getting.
Yeah,
I think in later,
surprised that she's there a lot more.
Yeah, I think in season 3 and 4 they just don't really know what to do with her anymore. So they basically do.
Series 4.
Okay,
but
maybe it's season 3. I'm thinking where she
2 and 3. I think maybe they fade her out a little bit.
Yeah, but she, of all the characters, she probably has the maybe the best character arc in season 1. She really grows into someone who's capable and more confident than she was at the beginning.
Absolutely, But I just think there's aspects of it that they didn't pay much attention to, and so she's probably done a disservice.
I think that's all the characters. There's no one left.
Travis Mayweather.
What? Who?
We have
Travis who? He's not.
I'll keep the bird.
Oh, okay.
Travis Mayweather, African American helmsman, mid-20s, a unique product of 22nd century life. Mayweather was raised on a long-range transport vessel. This is him, and this is him talking.
Ooh.
I was born and conceived.
Do his voice.
I was born and conceived during a 2-year run, somewhere between Alpha Centauri and Arcturus Prime.
Perfect.
I can't do his voice. As a result, Mayweather is more interstellar than even the captain.
Ooh.
He's travelled to dozens of planets and met many different alien species. Mayweather knows the best place on a ship to watch the stars rush by or feel the vibrations from a passing pulsar. He prefers to sleep in a zero-G environment. Every night before he goes to bed, he deactivates the gravity plating in his quarters and his cocoon-like hammock floats up on his tether.
Yikes.
Mayweather will prove to be a valued member of the crew, a talented pilot with an instinct for space travel that few humans possess. This will help Captain Archer through situations where intellect and protocol alone won't suffice.
That would have been a great character.
Exactly, but I can't think of one single notable Travis episode in the entire run.
Fortunate son.
Even in that, he doesn't really do. He knows about freighters, but it's the rest of the crew still do plenty with that episode. He's not vital to that episode. I don't think it's not a.
He kind of helped. That episode helps flesh out some of his kind of character background as much as he contributes to it. But
I don't feel like he's crucial to that.
He's just not given. He's just not given the stories that it implied he should be from that description.
I think it shows that. Why is the helmsman a main character?
He could be though, because that is the thing. He's been all over. He's been more planets than most of the others. They do one scene where that comes up, and that's in Broken Bow, when Trip talks to him and says, I heard you've been to this planet. Of the women there, yep, 3. So, yes, it's childish, but,
Yeah.
noses. So it's like, that could have been a brilliant thing, He could have had that little ongoing Chekhov type thing about Russia, where every so often he said, I went to a planet where they did this and this. And I'm like, yes, Travis, we know.
There was an early episode where he goes, where they hear some kind of space noise, and he's like, siren songs, and
I quite like that.
Yeah.
He likes ghost stories.
He does.
He loves ghost stories, yeah.
He's there, and he's always got this boundless enthusiasm for it, which I do enjoy. So I think it's important to remember that actually they're travelling in fucking space. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that it is always good to have a character there who's blown away by that, because he's that little guide for the audience. Because this is an amazing spectacle we're getting to witness.
But they don't trade on that experience he had.
I think he should have
up.
just never shut up. He should have been jumping in and saying, I remember when we did this, and what about this? I remember this when I was to this planet. And it could be completely useless, but now and again there'll be this little nugget that'll just click into place.
You can tell that there are episodes where you can tell that they needed to write him in doing something. So there's a scene pretty early on, I think. It might be actually Fight or Flight, where he's helping Reed in the armory. With the targeting sensors. Why isn't an armory officer doing that? And it's because they needed a scene with Travis in, I think.
Yeah, because hasn't Malcolm got his own team?
Yeah.
Why has he got a helmsman?
I suppose there's something to be said for Tactical and Helm having to work quite closely together in terms of manoeuvres and shooting. But I think there is bits. There's these little bits, like Fortunate Son has this really good bit where basically Travis comes in to see Archer and says to him, my experience in freighters, I think the way you're handling this is not quite... And, Archer very gently says to him, is there any more of my orders you want to question today? And so it's sort of quite a nice sort of put you back in your place. But at least Travis came up and had the guts to come to the captain and say that. Fallen Hero, I think when he's taking the ship above Warp 5, I think his reaction playing off that is really, really good. I really enjoy. So I've got no problems with the way he's played. I thought Anthony Montgomery does really well. I just don't think, again, he's like, oh shit, he doesn't get enough to do.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think he's underwritten. I think they come up with a concept to this character, but then never quite figure out what they want to do.
I think I said similar things on Voyager regarding T-Rock and Kim.
Yeah.
So there should be more episodes where that character as well was central to the story.
But instead they needed to devote 50% of the screen time to Paul's ass to tick off that demographic. So sadly, it does feel like Paul gets a lot of episodes at the expense of some other characters.
And also Trip as well. So there's an episode towards the end, the Desert Crossing. I don't mind, but
I thought it was fine.
Travis could have maybe replaced Trip.
I think
there would have been more
interesting. Where Archer and Travis are locked up with the Suliban, Travis has some nice moments there. Again, in terms of when he has this thing about preconceptions that he talks about with one of the Suliban. He says, I had preconceptions about you, but I got over it, and I'm now going to work with you to try and sort out this prison. So why can't you do the same thing? Why do you have to look at me with distrust? Because I've been straight up and trying to help you. So he can. He has his moments, but I just think he's sold short. So.
Yeah.
Considering that's also an episode where you get to see Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell together on screen. He does a good job of you remembering that he's in that episode. Yes.
Kills me that Archer didn't at one point in that episode go, oh boy.
Yeah.
Kills me.
Or Dean Stockwell's got an assistant called Ziggy.
Ah, yeah, where he's like, yeah, there's a 58.5% chance that you're here to.
Quantum Leap's got a great theme tune.
It has. I love it. Man, we need to save it for the Quantum Leap podcast. And also we're going to talk about how we felt succeeded as a prequel.
Yes.
Looking at it for this rewatch, I think it's good because it really is more like they're going where no one's gone before. I think a lot of the stories and the characters, they are going out there. They don't know what they're going to find. In a way, they sort of act like guys who've seen some episodes of Star Trek, got excited about going into space, and then run out there, and then they hit the stuff they didn't expect. And I think, there's no first contact procedures, there's no prime directive, there's no battle manoeuvres. They really are. There is a lot of effort put into showing that they're figuring this out as they go along. I think that pays off, and I don't think I appreciated it the first time round.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the perfect time period. I think they chose the perfect time period to have a show because the original series didn't really kind of nail too much of that we consider canon down. So there's a lot of wiggle room in the past. Whereas, and watching and thinking about it, I'm not really sure what story they could have told set after Voyager and Deep Space Nine that we hadn't really seen before. So if they're going for something that's a bit new, if they're going for something where they're trying to tell something do something slightly different, it's perfect. And also having it as a ship that can do warp 5 as a limit, that also helps as well, because it means that it's not you're going to ever have a story where they get somewhere really quickly, or they can, there's less for you in terms of the stories that you should be able to write with that premise. They have to kind of be, I would say they probably have to be a bit, they have to have a clear idea about what you want to tell in that story. You can't just kind of write in a Deus Ex Warp Speed kind of thing where you get somewhere quickly. Or
I think it's also nice to have us on the back foot a little bit. We're new at this. We don't have the technology. We don't have the entire Federation and that infrastructure behind us. Because it was kind of difficult to show anything that was really a threat to the Federation, because it's such a big thing.
Yeah.
Whereas here, we haven't got that. We haven't got any of that. We've got one ship, and that's really it.
I really, really like the NX-01. I think it's a good looking ship. I think I like it a lot.
Yeah,
I think she's
it's
a beauty,
cool.
Yeah.
But I think the Enterprise does capture that sense of excitement about being in space and about exploring the unknown. It does that well, particularly sort of early on. The characters are all psyched to be there, except for Hoshi, who hates it. But even that's interesting because some characters wouldn't be familiar with, but being in space is a whole new thing.
And actually, they'll suddenly get a bit less excited when someone says, "Hey, let's go in the transporter."
Yeah,
they're like, "That's not the shuttle."
And in Next Gen, everyone's travelling around in a luxury carpeted hotel.
It's got an arboretum.
Yeah,
I think the look of Enterprise is very good. It's much more cramped.
Yeah,
it's much more utilitarian. The captain doesn't have a lavish 5-room apartment. It's got a very tiny room.
It's like a Navy ship.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It takes a lot of cues from it, because we haven't got the technology to waste that sort of energy hauling around huge, great blooming hotel rooms, like you say. And they've got what they've got, and they have to work in that sort of tiny space, these cramped corridors, and it's very, very good.
And they also relay slightly the peril of being in deep space in this little ship hurtling through space, and you do sometimes get the odd nod to the fact.
Yeah, particularly say Shuttle Pod 1. That's an episode that really embraces the idea that they are in space, and space is a horribly hostile environment. And if you
do have mashed potato, you're okay.
yeah, they are some luxury rations there, don't they? They look delicious.
Yeah, I always kind of wonder about that. It's like how much food stuff are they hauling around? I know they've said they've got protein resequences, but still, I get the feeling that they're very limited. They're nowhere near replicated.
In Shuttlepod 1 as well, they had some leftovers on their plates. That annoyed me.
Yeah,
It's like, that annoyed me.
I don't think there's a loo on the Shuttlepod, is there? So maybe he's like, I have all that meatloaf and mash. I'm going to have to complete that transaction in about an hour.
What are they going to do?
While Malcolm's writing one of his letters.
Yeah.
What do we think of the general look in terms of the technology there and how it could lead to the original series?
I like that they've made some efforts to make it look like some elements of the original series. Like you've got the the kind of periscope style view screen thing that you look through. But the NX-01 doesn't, like the bridge and the sets don't look a lot like original series did. But I'm okay with that because
bear in mind there's 100 years of development to build towards that, and I think there are touches like yes, we've got LCD screens now.
Yeah.
So if you then showed a futuristic series where everyone was, that didn't reflect that level at least, and going beyond that. But then if you look at those screens, the very bright primary colour block type displays, which look like the displays you see on the TOS thing. So I think there is an effort there to bridge that thing, while still remaining true to the idea of from the year 2003, what would be happening 150 years on,
and also realistically about it's how television production is advanced in those.
Absolutely.
It's not the 1960s anymore. There's a different kind of budget. There's a different way of filming things. It is going to look different.
They do a good job of Enterprise feeling relatively cramped. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lots of in most scenes in the engine room will have a lot of extras there, and you definitely get a sense that there are a lot of people milling around working all the time.
They just have not got the technology or the power to build anything with excess room. Everything's got to contain something and serve a purpose. And it requires a lot of manpower to keep running.
Most of the crew share quarters with someone else, don't they?
Yeah. I did feel, and a sort of slightly negative point though, I did feel that they sometimes, if the plot demands it, they'll kind of go back on what they've said. So you've got they don't have phasers when they go out there until the plot demands that they get phase cannons, and then they get phase cannons, and they can't use the transporters until the plot demands that they use transporters because the writers have kind of written themselves into a corner. And
the transporters were there, and straight from the get-go it said they were rated for biological use. It was just that no one liked the idea of having their atoms scrambled.
Yeah.
And that actually did persist through to McCoy's time, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the phase cannons are an attempt to show a primitive phaser version, but I think they could have made more effort to distinguish them a bit more. Although, in fairness, the phase cannons are not especially effective. Anyone who's like even slightly more advanced technology-wise shrugs them off for that much thing. So.
Yeah. They can't use them.
They rig the phase cannons to be too powerful.
But then they'll blow out most of the power grid. So
and the whole idea of the sort of slightly untested Warp 5 engines really comes to a head in Fallen Hero in a brilliant sequence where
it's an amazing sequence. I mean, I'm going to bring it up again in my highlights.
Me too.
Because it's so well done, and I like that. It's not until about 20 episodes in that they actually break that Warp 5 barrier, despite the fact that they've gone right on and on.
I think Fallen Hero might be my favourite episode of season 1.
I think me too. And for listeners who aren't too familiar with Fallen Hero, in that episode there is a sequence that we're talking about where the warp engines are pushed to the limit, and there's a line where
they break Warp 5.
Archer says,
"It's called a Warp 5 engine on paper."
We've never done Warp 5, and it's a sequence that you couldn't really have in Next Gen or DS9 because
I think most other series would have broken Warp 5 in the pilot. When they said so, I was always surprised that it went through so long, and I thought, okay, that actually pushes this. it's a Warp 5 engine on paper.
Yeah.
You know, it's faster than they've ever gone before, but that upper limit is technically theoretical, and it really adds to the drama of that moment. It makes it an especially good thing.
Yeah.
And they don't overuse it after that, I don't believe.
No.
So it's good. It's very
The closest thing I can think of in another episode is of Star Trek is maybe Threshold in Voyager, where they're pushing Warp 10, but we don't talk about Threshold.
Not if we can help it.
No. One day we have to watch it and we have to dedicate an episode to Threshold, surely.
We could
Because
get Trekkie Rob back.
yeah, I think let's subject him.
Punish Rob.
He mentioned it.
He did. You know, if you want to guest on our on our podcast, you have to suffer for your art. And I can't think of a better way to make someone suffer than to watch Threshold again. But yeah, getting back to
Enterprise. I mean, as a prequel, I'm fairly positive on it.
Oh, yeah.
I think it does a good job.
Me too. I like it a lot. If anything, they could have done a bit more with it in terms of the limitations that they had.
I think that they make more lip service to things that become other stuff in later series, though.
Yeah,
they don't. There's a lot of it will say, "Oh, it's just fan service references," but those fan services are good, and they build that world, they build that universe, and I think they do a lot more of that in, say, Series 4, particularly. So it would have been nice to have a few more of those.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Something that is hardly touched on at all, which I would have quite liked to have seen a little bit of, is that Enterprise is set about 90 years after the end of World War III, and you don't really get much of it. I mean, obviously because they're not back to Earth very much. But you don't really get a sense of what mankind did in those 90 years that's gotten to this, because the Vulcans have been on Earth since that time. I mean, because first contact was 2063, I think.
Well, about that. They talk for the last 100 years the Vulcans have held us back. It's like, you were still living in shanty
while
time.
you were rebuilding.
I don't think you were ready to jump out into the straight away.
We
don't know. That was one aspect that we saw in First Contact. For all you knew, there were big cities elsewhere on the globe.
It's an unexplored area of the timeline in Star Trek, and actually you would kind of think, well, Enterprise isn't set that far after. I mean, we still talk about World War One.
In season 1, there are a couple of points in season 1 where humans are a bit kind of boastful about themselves. They say, we gave up hunting 100 years ago. We gave up slavery. And no, you didn't. Which I thought, watching Enterprise again, I really came to think that it was a great idea to set it when they did.
Yeah,
I would have, if anything, liked to have seen more of that and played on the limitations more, in terms of speaking to new alien races, in terms of the technology you have being, great by your standards, but there are going to be aliens out there that are way more powerful. Like in Silent Enemy is great. That's another highlight for me.
Yeah,
that one did it for me as well. Yeah. Should we move on to highlights? In fact, because I think we're getting there, aren't we? And we've inadvertently discussed a lot of our highlights in the last.
I'll tell you my first highlight on my list: Breaking Warp 5. I both love that they waited till so far in to do that and made it such a big deal, and it's just such an amazing sequence.
Yes,
it's a great episode and a really, really good sequence where they do that.
I think it's a good episode until you get to the last 15 minutes where that sequence comes in, and then it becomes a great episode. And for my money, Fallen Hero might be my favourite of the season. Actually,
I think we were saying in the previous episode, it's an episode where Archer is great. Like he's genuinely he's probably where he does his best captaining.
Yeah, and I really like that. There's a kind of there's a deception they have to. So in Fallen episode, in Fallen Hero. There's a Vulcan ambassador who is being
she's been expelled from the planet she was on, and Enterprise is tasked with taking her back to...
Is it Mazar?
Yeah, the Mazarites are the ones chasing her.
And it turns out that she's been undercut. She's really reluctant to give this information to Archer. To my money, just a little bit too reluctant, because she has a little chat with T'Pol, and then immediately after that, she's like, "Okay, Archer, I'll tell you everything." Why didn't you do that like 2 hours ago when we weren't on our way back to?
I was moving it for you.
But anyway, then the crux of the episode, and the Vulcan ambassador is a really interesting character. Actually, she's a bit different from most Vulcans. She's a bit warmer.
She's played by the same actress who played Juliana Taylor, who was Data's mother.
Ah, okay.
And
she's great.
And Daphne Moon's mum in Frasier.
But the episode sort of climaxes on a sequence where Archer has decided he's going to deliver this Vulcan ambassador back to Vulcan at all costs, because she's uncovered some. It's like a government corruption.
An organisation that is in kind of inveigled its way into every level of Mazarite governance. And I'm like, this is great. A Fallen Hero felt like a season finale. It had that much drama in it.
It was very
and they basically they can't. There's 3 Mazarite ships on their ass. They can't fight all 3 of them off. Not at warp. They can't fire their phase cannons at warp, even though they do in early season 2.
Man. At this point, Reed says, "I can't fire them at warp without disrupting the warp field. I'm working on the problem. Haven't solved it yet." Later on, he does that. He just solved it.
Yeah, he solves it off screen. It's not mentioned. Anyway,
the first scene between Archer and the Mazarite captain, I really liked as well. It's a very kind of Picard-esque kind of way of handling. I've been kind of friendly, but also kind of understanding what's going on. Reading between the lines, they're both. Because the Mazarite captain says, "I'm just a transport. I don't know why people make decisions."
It's like we both know we're bullshitting
and
each
Enterprise
other.
and I just like I got to check this with my superiors too. So I can't just send her over. It's great.
Yeah, the episode climaxes in a sequence where they have to outrun the Mazanites, basically, and that involves pushing the engines to their very limits. It's just a thrilling sequence. It's really well directed. It's really well scripted. The editing's really really tight. You cut back between the engine room and the bridge, and there's a point where there's loads of fire in the engine room, and Trip's getting really stressed out. And he's like,
"Please tell me you're ready to slow down." "Sorry, Trip, but we need a little more speed." "I don't know how much more I can give you."
Like, well, you gotta be kidding me. And it's great. The performances are great. Everyone sells the idea. It's the real high point of the whole season for it, really. I kind of feel fully like engrossed in that.
Launch his own podcast where he just raves about how great this episode is for an hour every week.
I think I could, but not just the whole episode, just that 15-minute sequence where they're pushing the warp engines.
I am seeing that our lists are mirrored somewhat. Your second item is the same as my second item.
It's Dear Doctor. I love Dear Doctor.
Dear Doctor as well. I thought
it's a cracking episode. I mean, we delved into it when we talked about Phlox previously. So it's just really, really well done.
And his lovely girlfriend, Crewman Cutler.
Oh
yeah,
Cutler. It just makes me so sad. Every bit with Cutler was in, it was just tinged with a little bit of sadness because for those who don't know, the actress who played Crewman Cutler, Kelly Waymeyer, she suddenly died, and therefore Cutler doesn't appear again after I think 2 days and 2 nights.
Yeah.
So that was very sad because she was lovely. She was a really lovely character.
Yeah. It could have been a really interesting relationship.
I would have loved to see the dynamic expand and evolve over the next few series with her. But very, very sad.
Definitely, she was a great character actually.
Anyway, Dear Doctor.
It's got a great moral dilemma, and it's an episode which, for Enterprise, often does feel like it's pushing the action-adventure side of Star Trek. But Dear Doctor has
Very
zero
much in
action.
those Star Trek vein.
Yeah, there's no phases,
Usually.
battles.
Hold that up as a shining example of the sort of thing that Star Trek is famed for.
Yeah,
And it
definitely.
does come about because Enterprise is helping.
Mm.
And I think Phlox mentions that in his kind of little letter to his friend.
Yeah.
He mentions that he's always kind of impressed by humanity's ability to want to help people.
And it's really good to have that sort of outsider observation of humanity. And Dear Doctor just is literally that, because it's entirely Phlox's observation. So,
and the crux of the episode is the crux of the story is that the Enterprise come across a race who are dying from a genetic disease.
Yeah.
But it turns out that this race have they share their planet with what they consider to be a slightly lower developed race, but it's the Mank, yes. And Phlox, it turns out, has found a cure, but the Mank show signs of real development, and Phlox basically decides if he gives the more advanced race this cure, then is he interfering with the natural selection on that planet?
He feels that this race dying out from this genetic illness is the natural course of the evolution of this planet, and it's that race will die out and the Menk will become the dominant species, and it would be wrong to interfere. I mean, you can look at it from a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
and I think it's one of those dilemma things. And the way, as I touched on before, the important part of it is the relationship between Phlox and Archer and the way they approach these problems. And I think Archer learns from that, and Phlox learns from that.
And I at the end of that episode, I wasn't really sure if Phlox had made the right decision, and I like that I felt
think
that
in
way.
Archer's position, I don't know how I would have felt.
Yeah,
because there's no line of sympathy between either species. They're both
neither of them.
There's no bad guys.
They could have made it a lot simpler if the more advanced species were outright villains, and the sort of slightly lower developed race were kind of downtrodden slaves. But that isn't quite how they.
To an extent, they are, but not in such a harsh way as you may think.
Yeah.
So
not in a way that makes it easy to.
But then you could look at it from the gilded cage argument. Then, so
they're looked after, aren't they?
Yeah,
but that's always the barometer of that is always
kept.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't mean that it's that it's necessarily right to decide that that more advanced race shouldn't have a cure. But it's interesting that
it's kind of, I think Phlox is playing God to give them the cure. So that's what's brilliant, is when you sat after and you're able to have this discussion and think about it. That's good Star Trek.
And still, I don't know what I would have. I don't know what I would have decided in that situation, and it's great.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's the human thing to not to know, and the only thing, the best way to go about it is just decide and do that. Either always interfere or never interfere.
It's also the Doctor who has the ability to cure, but chooses not to for the greater good.
Yeah,
because they could find it themselves. They could. There's always that thing.
And they do. They leave them with that, don't they?
I think that they sort of leave them with a with something that will alleviate symptoms. But there's nothing to say that
there's no guarantee
can't get that cure.
Something else wouldn't happen. Like life. I can Jurassic Park. Life finds a way.
Yes.
I suppose when you think of the general thing of the Doctor is to do no harm. But if he was to give them that cure, what harm is he doing to the Menk and their chances of fulfilling their potential?
Yeah.
So,
what if aliens had come to Earth thousands of years ago and given old Johnny Neanderthal a leg up?
Yeah.
Or also, do you know what? These dinosaurs are all right. Let's deflect any meteors.
Let's deflect that comment. Oh, that would have been so cool.
Plus, let's give dinosaurs laser eyes. Oh man, so cool.
I wonder if our third items are the same, Will.
Ooh, One of you. My third item is actually Fortunate Son.
Mine's Andorians.
Is it? Well, I've got the Andorian incident as number 4.
My
so...
highlights are literally highlights.
Pink.
There's a full episode list with highlighted good stuff.
In the last episode I did say that I didn't think Fortunate Son did it was considering it's about like a space transport. He didn't do the best job for Travis.
Yeah.
I like that episode.
It expands the universe.
Yes, that's what I liked about it. I think.
It's definitely something that Enterprise should have shown, and it did.
I love the idea of these families on these ships hauling this cargo across the course of years.
It's most likely how things will happen in if we ever go into space. I can't see. I think it will be missions that take a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because initially we're not going to have that speed, are we?
No. Maybe not ever. I don't know.
Well, I like to think that Star Trek's totally going to happen, but
Yeah.
Optimism, Captain.
Indeed. But yeah, Fortunate Son is. It's got some good action in it. It's exciting. It's got a good bit of drama.
Nausicans,
there's Nausicans in it.
Yeah, they're not just kind of high thugs.
Human play dumb jot.
Because if you from previous episodes where in Star Trek as a whole where you've seen Nausicans, you never really get an idea of them as a race very much.
No.
They're big. They look a bit like predators.
They're like simplistic Klingons.
Yeah.
Really.
It was nice to see them expand a little bit in this.
They're actually portrayed as there's a point where they're still quite reasonable and they make a decision to back down when they've got all the information. Yeah. So do you want to move on to Andorians?
Yes, particularly the Andorian incident.
Yes.
Also highlighted.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Combs is always obviously a delight, whether he's playing Wayoon, Brunt, or anyone really.
Yeah.
He's just
Dr. Herbert West in Reanimator.
Maybe not that Ferengi that he plays in. Although actually, in that Ferengi episode, which I'm sure we'll get to in our lowlights, he's probably the highlight of that episode.
Yes.
He's great. He's great.
The highlight of that low light. Yeah. But he's just always fantastic. He just always turns in a fantastic performance. As Shran, he's just amazing.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic character.
He almost single-handedly made Andorians my favourite race.
Yes, because we'd seen very little Andorians apart from they were very distinctive in original series, but rarely used. Hardly used at all in other series. Really great.
Races mentioned, but like Andorian ale and things like that will get mentioned. But
I think by Enterprise we've reached a point where makeup techniques meant we could have interesting antenna movements and stuff going on.
Yeah,
I think that was maybe the thrust behind it and why we didn't see them previously.
It's the same with Tellarites. Like the Tellarites are pretty horrifying in the original series because they look like their heads have been hollowed out.
Yeah,
they return effectively in Enterprise, but not in first series. So we shan't dwell on that.
The Andorian Incident's a great episode because it's. I think it's a good episode, but it's made great by the twist at the end where it turns out that the Vulcans were being pretty sneaky all along. So the
Andorians weren't paranoid.
Yeah,
they
so
really were being watched.
The crux of the story is the Andorians think that a Vulcan monastery is hiding some Vulcan surveillance station. Turns out they're bang on the money. Yeah. That's what the Vulcans are doing, and Archer quite fairly discovers this, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Let's guess what, Andorians, you were right." Turns out the Vulcans kind of dicks.
It's important because it also sets that Archer will be fair when he deals with alien races. Because initially he's fighting back against Andorians, but when it turns out the spot on, he's got no reluctance to expose the Vulcans, who essentially are allies, regardless of his differences.
And it's where that episode uses that. It uses the themes of Enterprise in general, where humans are overly inquisitive. They get themselves involved in a situation that they wouldn't have if they hadn't been so inquisitive. But it's used well in in the Andorian incident, because it's a well-written story. It's not like one where they're overbearing or anything. Like and that's what Enterprise is about. It's the first kind of deep space mission that humans have had with a warp ship.
I think,
but it uses that it does that thing well. Whereas in other episodes, humans can just come across as being like, well, as almost boorish in ways in the way that they go about doing things. But this uses that kind of whole thing where we're meeting these races for the first time. We're doing these things because we're inquisitive, because we want to meet new people and getting ourselves into situations. But coming through that by learning how to best navigate that kind of situation.
I also think that it sets the tone for the Federation in general, in that Archer is this guy who goes in fairly and mediates. I mean, he doesn't necessarily mediate, but it's that kind of... They get involved and they are fair, and I think that's then becomes this tone for the Federation.
Especially considering at the beginning of Season 1, his attitude to the Vulcans is pretty antagonistic. Like, it would be easy for him to just kind of side with the Andorians, I think. But he's pretty fair-minded, I think. He tries to see both sides.
I do enjoy the Shran Archer.
It's really, I agree. It's really good. Like, it's one of those. You get a sense that they're genuinely friends.
Yeah, there's a bit of a bromance.
There's a great respect, and I know there was plans that if Enterprise had continued to be on Series 4, Shran would have joined the crew, and you just think, oh man,
that wouldn't so cool.
Those two guys together all the time.
Gemma, you're a big fan of Shran, aren't you?
Yes.
He's your favourite Jeffrey Combs man.
He's my favourite Jeffrey Combs man. I think he's my favourite character on Enterprise. He's one of my favourite characters in Star Trek. I think he's stupendous. I don't know that he would have been good as a member of the crew. He's too big a character. He's good to bring in as what is he? What's his rank?
Well, he's essentially a ship captain.
He's a ship captain. So why would he be on another captain's ship?
Oh yeah, I guess If he'd been a captain on another NX, maybe that would have been cool.
Whoa, that would have been a big move.
Yeah.
Like the NX-03, I guess, because Captain Hernandez is in the NX-02, right?
Oh man, when we get to doing a Series 4 analysis, I'm just going to go on about how great Captain Hernandez is for about an hour. Just to warn you guys in advance.
Yeah, strap yourselves in for that.
Captain Hernandez.
Yeah. Should we move on to our what's everyone got next on their list?
Actually, the episode that followed on from the Andorian, episode 8, Breaking the Ice, I really liked.
Okay.
Where they find that comet. It's got a really great scene where the bridge crew are recording a message for a school that sent them.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's basically a big old kind of exposition dump, but I enjoyed that scene as well.
And the opening scene is where they're in the canteen mess hall, and they're looking at these pictures that this school has sent them. It's just really nice. It's just it's a real sense that you get, and it connects them back to Earth.
I think that's really good, because it gets that thing of what people back on Earth thinking about this, and what are they hearing, and so it's a really nice touchdown back. I'm overly not bothered about the comet thing.
I like that it's just an episode. Episode where they just found it's the biggest comet we've ever found, and there's not a lot of tension in it at all.
There's not. I think it's like
storyline about
tension. The thing is basically Archer learns to ask for help.
Yeah, but it's only in the last maybe 9 minutes, because I think I wrote down when I was watching it when there was peril, and it was in the last 9 minutes where they seemed like they might be trapped.
Peril.
Is that the one where Tucker inadvertently reads T'Pol's private letters?
Oh, I think it might be. Yeah, I think it might be.
Oh, yeah. Lieutenant Reed and Ensign Mayweather extract a rare chemical on a comet while Sub-Commander T'Pol considers marriage to cost.
Yeah.
It's a little minor thing, but it pays off much bigger in storylines later on, particularly And actually, it's quite good that Trip is the one who inadvertently reads it, because obviously her marriage later to Cos has a much bigger impact on Trip.
Mm.
So it's but it's one of those things. It's very subtle and in there, and is initially there just for Trip to embarrass himself.
And actually,
maybe it's kind of good for Trip to feel a little bit of humility about the way he treats T'Pol.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought I like breaking the ice. It's a good Star Trek episode. And the scene going back to that scene where they're answering questions that the kids at this school have for the crew. It's just really good. I think it works really well.
Felt like to me it was almost breaking the fourth wall, and they were almost addressing the audience. It was almost like we've had a letter from Jeremy Steepleson in Lincoln, who says, "Dear Star Trek Enterprise, what happens when everyone does a poo?" It's like, well, yeah. But actually, it kind of addresses some questions that fans that Star Trek fans would want to know about. It's the sort of minutiae of.
I think they play on that a little bit through Deep Space Nine with the references to waste extraction, don't they?
Yeah,
they clearly know there's a query out there.
There's an interesting poop.
Yeah.
So, well, I've got the next thing on my list was Silent Enemy.
Which I also got that highlighted.
Thought it was a really exciting episode. It's a nice sort of thing where they need to get they're basically under attack from an unknown alien, and they're outmatched and outgunned, and there's some real tension in this episode because they're genuinely up against something that they don't know how to deal with it, and they're trying to get back to Jupiter Station to get the phase cannons that they were meant to get when they headed out, and they decide to. It's like Malcolm, who just basically decides, we could do this ourselves.
They have one.
Yeah, that's it. They've got one prototype.
One needs installing, and they need to build two more. But yeah, Reed and Tucker are determined they can do this themselves, and they do, and it's pretty effective.
And it's just it helps you. It reminds you that they're kind of out there on the edge of, they're on the frontier, and they don't know what they're dealing with, and if they come and get up against something that they're outmatched with, they're basically on their own.
It's almost like an Under Siege type thing, that these guys are chasing them and they're attacking them, and they've got to get something ready in time to be able to fight back.
Yeah,
sort of thing. So there's that sort of element.
Reminded me of Spielberg's first movie, or maybe not his first movie, but a great film called Duel, where a man is pursued relentlessly by a truck driver, and there's no explanation as to why. He's just
don't have any who these aliens are.
That's
what they want at all.
Well, they're just an enemy, and they're just after them.
Do you know what they want?
What?
Don't they want their gallbladders or something? Is it not that episode?
I don't know.
Am I thinking of a different episode?
That's Fight or Flight.
Ooh, okay, sorry.
They do board, and they start
I thought I missed something.
doing something to some people. Well, it's never really clear.
Yes, the bad CG one.
I believe it's actually followed up in Star Trek Online. But for the purposes of canon and Enterprise First Series, that's fairly irrelevant.
Yeah.
But and I like that Archer repeatedly tries to make peaceful contact with them.
Yeah,
it's totally them. They're aggressors from the beginning. It's not us got into this, so that's good. And as I think we touched on, we really all quite enjoy the B plot about Reed's family and pineapple cake.
Yes, yeah, I think that works.
How did you know, sir?
That's good. That's your best Reed impression tonight, actually. Yeah.
It's about the 18th, but
I'm gonna dub over in the edit. I'm gonna dub over it with actual Reed. So the audience will never know what Rick's impression. I'm not going to do that. It's not fair.
I wanted to get Silent Enemy and dub over Reed's lines with Rick's impression.
That's a better idea. Yeah.
How on earth did you know?
What's next on the list of highlights?
I've got Shuttle Pod 1. I really liked Shuttle Pod 1. I thought it was a tense. It was a real bottle episode.
Absolutely.
In that basically the set was no bigger than a bottle.
It was a cramped shuttle.
It's basically Trip and Malcolm are stuck in a shuttle pod. They think the Enterprise has been destroyed, and they're maybe going to die. It's an episode that makes you realise that they're out there in space, and space is a really big. A, it's big, and B, it's inhospitable. Yeah. And if no one finds them, that's it. They're done for. And it's an episode where you learn a lot more about their characters. You learn that Tucker's drunk acting is weak. You learn a lot about his past girlfriends. It's a lot of fun.
But you're so critical of people's drunk acting. It's your drunk acting. I think we should get the script for this episode.
You're never going to see
all the drunk scenes. Will needs to act them out.
The problem is, I'm drunk all the time. No one's ever seen me sober.
But it is a great episode, and I do like there's a real contrast in the two, in the way Tucker won't give up fighting while Reed is ready to accept death and write letters to loved ones. So and then they just get on each other's nerves.
Mm-hmm. And considering that it's not solely set on that little shuttle pod, considering that that Enterprise is fine, it still works. Like it doesn't lose any tension.
It's not about the jeopardy. It's about of Enterprise. It's about these two on the shuttle together.
And even you're pretty sure the show is not going to kill off two main cast members
and the ship.
In episode 10 or something. So they're going to be okay. And the fact that the episode works despite that,
because I was thinking, well, wouldn't there be more wreckage? Wouldn't there? But then their sensors don't work, so they can't use the sensors to.
And I like the explanation of what's happened. There's no kind of it's not an elaborate ruse by someone.
No, it's just a genuine accident.
Yeah.
A bunch of goofy aliens crashed into the.
Big sillies. Did a crash. Finally on my list, I've got the season finale. Shockwave Part 1. Thought it was great. Great way to end the season. The temporal Cold War plot, which is underbaked to say the least. I'm sure we'll get onto that later. But actually, it works well in this episode. It's intriguing. It's exciting. The last 15 minutes or so of this episode, pretty thrilling. It's got and it ends with a brilliant cliffhanger where Archer is in the 31st century, but it's sort of Earth is a wasteland, and Daniels is there, and he's like, I don't know what's going on, and there's no way to get you home because all of the equipment is destroyed. And it's like, bah, bah, bah. And Enterprise is under threat from all the little Sulawan part. It's a great cliffhanger. It's a thrilling episode, and it's a shame that I know we're branching a bit into season 2, but the resolution to that episode is pretty weak. And I, for years, I'd watched the season 1 finale, and I hadn't seen the follow-up episode. For many years, I didn't know what happened, and when I watched it recently on Netflix, I realised that I had seen it. It was just so forgettable. That I'd forgotten.
There is one thing: is that
save it for the season 2 low lights.
Yeah, I will do.
If you live on a planet where you've made it so that the atmosphere can explode, because surely gravity would. At the point where gravity would just bring you down, you wouldn't have to have like your thrusters on or anything, because it's like the Enterprise is going down to see this colony, isn't it? And they're going on. They're having a little bit of a humour about it being a matriarchal society.
I'd love to have actually seen that.
Fried to death.
Star Trek has always touched on it, but always treated it as a bit of a subject of hilarity.
Yeah.
There's a bit in the original series where they had a matriarchal society where they put in for repairs and they reprogram the computer with a female.
And it calls everyone dear.
I think
and let's not get started on Angel 1 in next gen.
I think that's the thing. It's just because there's a matriarchal society. It doesn't mean that women are overly prominent. It just means it's a matriarchal society.
It's just treated as a subject of fun and derision, which I think is a bit like. I'd like to see them try a series episode where they'd show how that would actually be, and it's just not
but that colony should said, look, just don't. Our atmosphere could explode.
Yeah.
So just come down with no thrusters on, please. None at all.
Yeah.
Even if you close your thrusters up, they might still go off, and then our atmosphere will explode.
Yeah,
But
no
one wants that.
There's some nice stuff in that episode where, because Archer blames himself, there's an accident in it. It seems that Enterprise is responsible for the deaths of about 3,000 people, and Archer's in bits. He thinks he's and
crew's reaction is really good because they're so cut up about it.
And you kind of buy it, I guess, because you kind of think, well, maybe that's how the series is going to end. Maybe it's just going to be a one. Maybe it got cancelled. Maybe it's just a one-season show, and this is how they end it. Who knows? But then they discover it's a Suliban plot, and there's a lot packed into that episode. It's really pacey. It's great.
Yeah, agreed.
I have one more highlight. I'd like to talk about fusion.
Ooh.
Right, because that kind of, and in fact, this could bridge our highs and lows because I think it covers both.
Ooh.
In fusion, I think it highlights the best and the worst of the crew of the NX-01. This is the episode where they meet a ship of Vulcans who interpret Surak's teachings in a different way and try to blend logic and emotion rather than outright reject emotion. So, firstly, the crew, and I've complained about this before, they were like, "Yay, Vulcans who are cool!" That's their whole attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
So I touched on how I feel about the way they treat T'Pol like this. Their whole attitude is always, you embrace logic and reject emotion, I'm going to spend all my time with you trying to elicit an emotional reaction, telling you to loosen up and tell you how important emotions are and your entire culture is just wrong. So in this episode, obviously they're delighted to meet Vulcans who feel, who do experiment with emotion. And then Archer out and out orders T'Pol to spend more time with these guys, despite the fact she's clearly and obviously uncomfortable with them. But they've got better scanning equipment. Anyone could pull those readings up from the other ship. It has to be T'Pol because the unspoken thing is, and it's quite apparent, if we get T'Pol to hang out with these guys, maybe she'll become as cool as them.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
She tells them, in all of our historical experience on Vulcan, this doesn't work.
Yeah. She's like, in history, this is never...
They're not the first ones to attempt this, Captain. Others have tried to reintegrate their emotions. They all failed.
Oh, shut up, T'Pol.
You big silly.
He's big silly.
One thing I noticed about that episode was that the captain that we meet at the beginning, who's played by Chris Pine's dad, interestingly, he kind of slightly disappears halfway through, and Talaris becomes the main point of contact.
Yeah.
Well, actually, sorry.
So actually, to be fair, where the entirety of the crew is not depicted as unhinged, mind rapey villains, because there's the engineer who's actually a really nice guy, and that he has a story that's
regarding the contact with his dad
heartwarming.
And the way Trip actually encourages and helps him. So it'll come to that because there is a reason why I also have this in my highlights. Is regarding the Vulcan who takes a shine to T'Pol, who tries to introduce her to mind melding. She's dabbled a bit, as stated in her character thing, that she does have this little lean towards experimenting, but the meld goes too far and basically essentially becomes an assault. So we're then dealing with a mind rape. And what I like is Archer's reaction, and that at no point does he question her. At no point does he have any issue. Straight up, he just calls this guy in, chews him out, and tells him to get the hell off his ship, because he supports her 100% from the get-go. And you think, actually, when you look at, because I always think of The Enemy Within in the original series, where Kirk's evil transporter duplicate, when he assaults Rand, the response from everyone else is to get Rand to recount her accusation in front of the captain that she is accusing. So the person who is actually stood there, in this case, nothing like. So I really just appreciate the way Archer handled it. And I think that's a highlight that episode, just because of the way it's done. And also it leads on to Stigma, I think, in the following series, which we'll talk about in the next thing.
Yeah,
but,
that's whether a medical conference.
Confluence never go well. Do that in Star Trek.
You think everyone gets a little name badge? free accommodation.
Yeah.
But no.
I think with the time, then that brings us to a good point to conclude.
Yeah.
Live long and prosper.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks.
Pineapple? That's my favourite. How on earth did you know?
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, our website is www.lowerdecksradio.co.uk. You can reach us on the Twitters at 10Backward, 10 being the numbers 10 and backward being the word backward. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/10Backward podcast. And you can also email us at crew@lowerdecksradio.co.uk. On a personal, individual level, my Twitter is @NerdRick, and I believe you two also have Twitters.
I do. Mine is @Will Turland.
Mine is @Mr. Imhotep. MisterImhotep.
So please do get in touch, give us any feedback or suggest new episode topics, anything like that.
Let's make sure history never forgets the name.
10 Backward?
Laddie, don't you think you should rephrase that?
10 Backward.
10 Backward.
You ever noticed her bum? What? Her bum. She's got an awfully nice bum.
To Sub-Commander to Paul.
Awfully nice.